taking the proceedings further, moving on to one of the last sessions for the day. The session titled The City of New Beginnings. Joining with us, Ms. Malini Goyal and V. Ravichandar. Unboxing Bengaluru is the first ever deep dive into the city's past and the promise of the future. It unravels the city's transformation in the last few decades and how social, behavioral, technological and consumptive changes have shaped this beautiful city. More importantly, the session will focus on the subtitle of the book, The City of New Beginnings. One of the city's most active civil society leaders, we have with us V. Ravichandar, who will be engaging with Malini Goyal. Ladies and gentlemen, a huge round of applause for our guest who would be joining us right here. Over to you, ma'am.
Lions in the forest, and he spoke about lions outside the forest too. Before we start, Malini has given me the happy news that we have a 2-minute video which effectively encapsulates what the book is about. We could potentially see that movie and call it a day. So can we play the movie, please?
In the universe, everybody knows Bangalore.
जो बैंगलोर है ना, बैंगलोर कर्नाटक है, बहुत सुंदर जगह है सर, सभी लोग रहते हैं इधर.
I feel it's a very chilled out city.
Bangalore is a city of hope.
I think it's a city of ambition.
It's a city about the future.
First word that comes to my mind is freedom.
City of comfort.
I've always been very grateful to the city.
Home.
Belonging.
Harmony.
Where tech happens.
The new Silicon Valley.
Reminds me of London.
The best place to experiment is Bengaluru.
A city of first generation entrepreneurs.
I won't exchange this for anything else.
Nehru in 1962, he had come down to Bangalore and he made this speech which said that most cities in India remind you of the present, definitely of the past, but there is only one city, and I'm paraphrasing him, there's only one city in the country that represents the future, and that is Bangalore. This was Nehru in 1962. Now the irony is Nehru made this speech at the opening of the Bangalore Municipal Corporation office. So, I don't think he had the Bangalore Municipal Corporation, BBMP, in mind when he spoke about the future of Bangalore. Now, Malini, coming over to you, the city of new beginnings is really the byline. To me, when I think of city of new beginnings that amalgamates a whole lot of thoughts, I think, okay, migrants come into this city and there's a fresh start. So I think of outsiders coming in and having a fresh start, or maybe even businesses having a second chance at success. So I think of it as city of new beginnings. But how would it fit somebody who's been an old Bangalorean for 40, 50 years? The city of new beginnings, how does the tag work for an old-timer who's already been around? And related to that, how did you finally end up that city of new beginnings? And I think it really does capture the spirit of your book. How did you come to that tagline?
So before we get into how we arrived at the city of new beginnings, let me tell you an anecdote, Ravi, and it involves you. So exactly a year back.
We are a mutually admiration society, so what to do?
Exactly a year back, around August, right? And we were busy with the book. It was in its final stages, 3 years in the work. And Prashant Prakash, the co-author of the book and also co-founder of Unboxing BLR, tells me that we should do a city festival. Okay, I have zero idea about how to do the city festival. I had little bandwidth. I absolutely didn't know how to go about it. He said, soft launch karte hain. We'll do soft launch. And zero clues, zero idea how to go about it, and we were struggling with it. In September, I remember meeting Ravi, okay? And we got Ravi into it. He joined, he steered it, he anchored it. And you know, in 2 months, 3 months, in December, we did a city festival. And over 50 partners, over 65 venues, 500 odd events. Government came as a big supporter. No other city you could have pulled this off. People like Ravichandar who just came as a volunteer leader, right, and to take this forward. So you know how I see it, and coming from Delhi, where I lived for 35 years, in Delhi, how power flows shapes how the city behaves and evolves. In Bombay, it's a lot about how the money flows. In this city, it's about how an idea flows. Everything else just comes together. You know, somehow it comes together. So that's what strikes me about how this city is, right? Now coming to how we arrived at the city of new beginnings, and I did over 600 interviews, and I met people at different points of time. Somebody said it was a PSU city, somebody said it was a science city, lake city, garden city, tech city, startup city, city of future also came. The only thing that one could spot was, what is the continuum is this city has managed to reinvent itself. Every time, from the 50s to 60s to 70s to 80s, and now, every decade or 2 decades, the city has managed to, and how else could a pensioner's paradise, right, 3 decades back, is now a hip and happening city for a young, globe-trotting, top-notch knowledge workers to locate to. So that's how.
Good. Since this is a business festival, before we move away from business, Malini has got a huge background as a journalist with over 30 years experience. And for those who haven't read is anybody here who's read this book, Unboxing Bangalore? I see 2-3 hands go up. Thank you so much for reading it. For the rest, because this is a city that we live in and consume, I would strongly recommend reading it because there will be sections of the book that will resonate with you. Now, this book basically starts, and in the context of the business festival, it talks about, of course, you cannot have Bangalore's mention without Silicon City being joined at the hip. You cannot talk about Bangalore in the business context without talking about startups. And you interestingly talk about startups and startup couples. So just walk us quickly through a summary that on the business front, what is the essence of what Bangalore represents? Startups, new age companies, technology and all that.
Yeah, so you know, one of the things that is there are few things that has changed dramatically about the city. And there are few things that remains constant. You look back as many years and decades as possible. So what remains constant is this city has managed to be the top destination for top workers in the country. So in the 60s and 50s, when PSUs were being set up, and IITs, that's where this top talent was flocking, PSUs. This city was the PSU capital of India, right? All the R&D that government was setting up, ISRO, DRDO, so all that was happening. Around 1980s, when IT outsourcing began to take steam, and remember this was India of another era, pre-liberalization, third world country, city of land of snake charmers, and IT outsourcing was all about labor cost arbitrage. That was a time that I think dollar dreams were happening, and this was the city again that people were coming to work in the IT outsourcing. Come to 2000s, the city was rapidly evolving as a startup hub, as an MNC R&D hub, and by now, all of that is coming together. It's a confluence of R&D center, which is the PSUs, the startup hub, of course, and MNC R&D as well.
And the academic ecosystem also.
And the academic ecosystem. So now I guess it is all a confluence of multiple layers that is coming together to give this city this startup tech sort of vibrancy that it has today.
One of the chapters in your book talks about globetrotters and expats and the like. So what's the appeal for, people from here traveling overseas a whole lot on work, but more importantly, it's also been a favored destination for expats to come and locate because they just tap into the talent. So what's your reading about Bangalore as a place for outsiders, particularly professional talent?
So multiple factors. So of course, weather is the hygiene, okay? That's one, but that's not the reason. I think this city is cosmopolitan, liberal, sort of modern in the way the city behaves. That is a big draw. The fact that both husband and wife, which is both the partners, are able to find job irrespective of their background, even if they are not a techie. That was the second thing I heard very frequently. Third, simply because MNC R&D hubs are setting up their operations here. So globally, a whole lot of people are locating in the city. So it's also reaching a certain virtuous cycle where, the existing number of companies getting more and more expats. So it's been 2 decades in the making, but all those reasons are very important.
So moving on from business, I think one of the more interesting chapters is how many people here are single, unmarried, unattached? Okay. This book has a chapter of being single in the city. So single and dating in the city. Malini is an expert on matchmaking as a result of her research. So can you just distill what it means to be single and what are the options for people who are single in the city?
So there's a chapter called Young and Single in the City, and this city is visibly young. If you've traveled to other parts of the country, you see it everywhere. And that's the reason why we decided to do it. And let me give you an example, which is an interesting example. So of course, dating platforms are used big time. And what I tell you is a combination of talking to over 40 young and single people, talking to therapists and counselors, and talking to dating platforms and drawing insights from that. So combination of all that. How trust shapes dating experience in different cities. So in Delhi, when people connected on dating platforms, for almost 3 months, they would continue to interact on the dating platform without sharing the number, and many times, of course, not meeting even. So not taking it forward from connecting on a dating platform to meeting either in person or taking it directly on their cell phones, right? In Bombay, reasons were very different. Meetings took a hell lot of a time, and meeting at home was very difficult. And I'll come to the reason. In Bangalore, the distance, the time between connecting on app and meeting in person at home was the shortest. And you know the reason why? In Delhi, the trust factor played a very important role. Women mostly were not comfortable sharing their number. The trust factor weighed heavy, so they didn't want to even take it offline, right? They wanted to continue online till the time they were really 200% sure that they wanted to take it forward. In Bombay, the real estate cost was so high that privacy at home was just not available, right? So to take your date back home was a difficult option. In Bangalore, often young and single people live in kind of, 3 young people staying in an apartment away from their parents. And there were enormous possibilities to take things forward offline and at home. So this is what, how the trust factor substantially shapes how people behave on dating platform.
For me, the takeaway really was
What next? How do you differentiate yourself? How do you give back? How do you remain relevant? I think those are the questions typically I've seen people ask in their 40s and 50s, right? Money making is the hygiene. You've made it. Now what next? I think that hunger to make a difference is a big one, is a big driver for many people and what they can give back. So that's one. Second, I think because they are digitally active, and especially in an era of WhatsApp group, social media platform, the tendency, the capacity of people to just come together, unite digitally, to make their voices heard. May it be steel flyover that was sort of, that got withdrawn, right? 2016 or 17. Or may it be different, Indira Nagar Rising, Whitefield Rising, all these communities that have cropped up. These platforms have become very powerful in the way they get heard. And I think in this city, the government hears as well. There's a pressure.
good. In fact, the other reason I have is, unlike Bombay, Delhi, and Chennai, which has multi-generation wealth, here as first-generation wealth, a lot of them middle-class people who have come good. I think there's a sense of giving back is a little more stronger because in the game of lottery, you got selected and became really, that's the...
Yeah, in fact, Ravi, I want to talk about a bit how money behaves. This was one interesting sort of anecdote there in the book. That how money behaves in Delhi versus Bombay versus Chennai versus Hyderabad versus Bangalore. It's interesting to sort of unpack that a little. So in Delhi, of course, money has colors, black and white. And often how money gets spent is a combination of many things: status signaling, power signaling, and of course the color of the money, black and white. In Bombay, it's about dhanda, right?
Business.
And how do you make money, how do you turn around that capital, that 0.5% interest rate, all that. In Hyderabad, how do you deploy your capital? First, it's about your surname, right? What surname you have decides the funding you get or you don't get. And it's a huge generalization, but I'm generalizing right now. In Chennai, some of the promoters, they could be big promoters steering 10,000, 20,000 crore company group. But to take a decision on 25 crore or 100 crore, there is a 15-member committee that has to arrive at a consensus to be able to take a decision on as small as 25 crore, right? Bangalore is a city of first-generation entrepreneur, where the entrepreneur has complete control over how he spends money. Of course, there are partners and there are investors, all that. But individually, he's equipped. He's a first-generation entrepreneur. His risk-taking capacity is far, far higher than some of the other cities. And how he deploys capital is very distinct from what you would see in other cities. And a reason why 40% of countries' venture capital actually gets invested in this city.
So in fact, I can see Benedict listening to you attentively because he's going to talk to you about how to raise money for the next business festival. She'll give you the tips. We are running out of time because we also started late. So we'll go into Q&A. Just to quickly, there are other chapters. There are talks of mafias. There are talks of fault lines. I don't want today's talk to be about the things that don't work in the city. We know that. Today is more a positive talk about what works in the city, and that's really what we are focused on. So if there are any questions, we'll throw it open for questions, and Malini will be happy to answer. Anything on Bangalore, your own take, questions that you might have. Yeah.
Thank you, Malini, for your talk. I've been living in the city on and off since '75. I always wondered what was the reason for PSUs to set up in the city in the first place.
So there were 2-3 reasons that, as I researched, one was the city was very well placed strategically. It was not on the borders. Strategic industry could be located here. So that was one. Second was, this was also a city with enormous science talent, right? And IISc being located here, and it had a history of it, right? ISRO, etc. So some initial momentum was because of historical reason right from the pre-independence era, and then it only got momentum, and some was also, I think, like ISRO was not supposed to be set up here. It was supposed to come up in Bombay or some other. There was push to set it up there. But then the person, I remember, forget the Sarabhai, right?
And Baba.
Baba. Sarabhai, I think. Yeah, he was insistent that if the ISRO was not located here, then he's not steering it, right? So for multiple reasons, it got located here.
And the other I'd like to add also is our clean weather. You know, a lot of the electronics industry came here within the PSU. We never got the heavy engineering, fortunately. And as a result of which, whether it was the telephone industries or the Bharat Electronics and the like, ISRO, we got a lot of the clean industries. And then also because of the academic environment, I think IISc played a role in deciding that this, and of course the local engineering colleges. Any other questions?
Yeah. So Malini, I'm 4 generations old to Bengaluru. So my question is that Bengaluru is seeing a really fast-paced demographic change. What do you think about that? Is it losing its identity?
So yes, that's a question I get asked often. I think, you know, every city, if you look at, and global city, New York, London, Silicon Valley even, all big cities go through this phase of massive growth and then a reset. I think cities hold on to their roots. So, you know, I know there is a lot of fear right now that all the good things about Bangalore is getting lost, and all the difficult things about outsider, insider, the linguistic barriers, many of those have begun to happen. But I think all global cities have managed to reinvent themselves and still managed to hold on to their roots. Look at London, look at New York. In fact, I'm just coming back from Copenhagen, and I was told that till 1980s, that city was rotting, right? It was decaying. People were fleeing the city. It was an industrial township where industry had become defunct. And post-1980s, the city completely decided to reinvent itself. And look at what Copenhagen today is. It's a city, walking city, beautiful city, biking city. None of that was possible till the 80s. So I think that cities have to, and the thing with Bangalore is that the growth has come in very short span of time, very short span of 20, 30 decades. I think it would overwhelm any city in the world, and this is a small town becoming a global tech hub. So yes, it's a transition. There will be turbulence, but I'm pretty hopeful looking at what other global cities have undergone, that you'll have an era where things will begin to settle down, and you will see that.
Thank you. One last question and then we'll close. Can I?
Thank you. I was listening
we can hear you.
By the way, I'm born and brought up in Bangalore. I've seen the face. One thing that struck to my mind is, are we doing enough to give back to Bangalore? Like, we get so much from Bangalore, create so many things. Are we giving it back? Are we giving empathy? Are we giving back to Bangalore? Are you touching upon this in your book?
Actually, in the context of city, I can talk on this because I've been involved for 24 years on this whole giving back story. So, actually the involvement of Bangaloreans in, let's say, resident welfare associations or people working with government, etc., far exceeds any other city. Actually, we could achieve a lot more if the government also welcomed it in even greater measure and moved faster on many of the ideas. So I see there are seeds of hope out there, and particularly the RWA and the local community and the kind of activity we see is really what's really going to keep Bangalore vibrant in the years to come. And there are challenges, like she mentioned about identity and language. You know, the government had to politically respond that more than 50% reservation has to be for locals. It's a political response because it won't stand in the courts. The Haryana court has already struck it down. But therefore, we have to navigate this ground a little more closely in a manner that we grow with inclusivity, with sensitivity on both sides. That's really the challenge for Bangalore as we go into the next set of decades to come. Thank you. We are out of time, so we close out here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for discussing a topic that is so close to our hearts. I request you to kindly stay on the dais. May I take this opportunity to invite Mr. Murali, who is here from Caleb, which is the library partner for the 10th Bangalore Business Literature Festival. Everyone, can we have a huge round of applause for him? Once again, thank you so much for this engaging and insightful session.